Hey everyone, welcome to the Naked Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Sage Hobbs, author and creator of Naked Communication, and I'm so psyched you're here. This show is all about taking charge of your life in new and inspired ways to create a life you deeply love. It's about being more you in all areas of your life, more courageous, more free, more alive, more naked. I'll be sharing stories and advice from amazing people around the world who are up to incredible things on how they are successfully breaking free from fear and old patterns in order to create incredible relationships and impactful lives so that you can do the same. This is the place to be inspired to live a courageous and naked life. Let's do this. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Naked Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Sage Hobbs, and this is episode 8. You can find the show notes over at sagebhobbs.com/episode-08. And I am really excited to talk to you today about something that's been coming up a lot lately. If you listened to episode 6, you heard about my weekends at Emerging Women Live, which was 500 amazing women from around the world who are just like you, who are curious and exploring and wanting to step more courageously into their voice, their agency, their power, their contribution, their leadership in the world in some way. And I had many conversations that weekend. I've had many conversations in the last several years with my clients around this sort of feeling of loss of identity or just disconnected with who we once were, you know, from kind of being more wildly free as children in some ways, and then like letting life kind of slow us down or get the better of us in some ways. So I find that a lot, that women are like bright, capable, interesting women who somewhere along the way, they're just like, oh my gosh, my identity got hijacked and I'm not even sure like what lights me up anymore or what my purpose is or what I'm here for or who am I? What am I about? Right? So if you've ever felt like you're kind of floundering out there and you know that there's like something else for you, or you just feel kind of flat, you just kind of feel uninspired and you feel guilty about that because maybe your life from the outside looks great and so you feel bad that you're not really enjoying it. Any of those things, I just want to give you 3 ways to kind of reconnect with that self, that sense of who you are if you've been feeling lost. And this has just been coming up in my world, like I said, all over the place. A client of mine sent me an article about the new midlife crisis, and I can post a link to that in the show notes. But it was fascinating just that women of a certain generation, despite accomplishments or background, I have a lot of feelings of like dissatisfaction, lack of fulfillment, can't really access their joy. That was another thing that was said to me recently. A friend of a friend just doesn't really feel happy, even though everything around her seems happy. And this just kind of breaks my heart. And it's really a huge part of the work that I do and that I want to share with you is just how to reconnect with that sense of spirit and self so that you can enjoy your life and have relationships that work for you and fulfill you and be of service and make a difference in the world. So I'm going to give you 3 things. Before I do that, I just want you to know at the time of this recording, let's see, this is going to go live. Yep, it'll still be open. I am going to reopen my group program if there are enough people interested. So it's a last minute kind of thing. Usually I would do it right around the holidays, but somebody recently said to me, you know, the holidays are a perfect time to host a small group intimate program to really support people through a time when their relationships are really challenging, which is usually in Western world time, November and December, when we have all of these holidays, all these people that trigger us sometimes at family gatherings, more on our plate, lots of feelings about gratitude and generosity and things that sort of set us off. So if you are interested in learning more about the group program, it's called the Naked Communication Experience, and it's just an intimate group of women. We talk virtually every week for 8 weeks, and I support you through 8 different strategies and tools to really have you feel more capable of handling your relationships with grace and ease and dealing with conflict with more confidence and just generally bringing more love and affinity into the relationships in your life during the craziness of the holidays. Email me, sage@sagebhobbs.com, sage@sagebhobbs.com, or go sign up for my newsletter over on the website because I will be sending out probably just 1 invitation for this. Mostly I'm just going to talk to people about it personally, I believe. So when you're feeling like you've lost yourself, here are a few things you can do to start getting back to who you are or rediscovering who you are now, because we change, right? We evolve, we grow. So the first thing I want to talk about is getting out of your bubble and really into a community that feels good. really spending some time with people who see you and understand you or who are interested in what you're interested in. I find that a lot of times at middle years of life, in particular for us women, we sort of get more isolated or we only see people by default, like at work or at pickup or drop off with our kids. And sometimes it's not our people. They're not our people. We're in our own little head space so much, or the bubble of our world between home and work, that we haven't really spent the time to cultivate our community in a while. And I get it. I have 2 little kids at this time. They're 4 and 8. I run my own business. I'm married. I have, lots of responsibilities and things going on. But I can't emphasize enough that if you just feel lost, like reaching out to 1 or 2 people who you feel a connection to will get you out of your own little headspace bubble and back into the world in a bigger way. And why that's so important is also those people can kind of reflect back to you who you are when you're not so sure. Like sometimes they're like, oh my gosh, you're hilarious, or you're so smart. You have the best ideas. Oh, you're such a good listener. Oh my gosh, you always make me think of things in a new way. You're the best cook. Oh my gosh, I love going running with you because you always keep me going and motivate me. All of these things that people can reflect back to you can just sort of remind you that you're a person in the world beyond maybe the smaller vision of yourself that you've had for a while, or the disconnected feeling of who you are. If you used to make art, be with some artists, join a pottery class. If you still love running and you haven't done it in forever, see if you can find a beginner's runner group. That's never one I do, but I know people love it. If there are some girlfriends that have been sort of deep connections for you in the past and you just really haven't called them or reached out to them in a while, do that. Take a step that takes you out of the confines of your world and puts you back into the world as a bigger self-expressed version of who you are, simply because you're stepping outside of your normal day-to-day, right? With other people. I want you to get in community in some way. I can't emphasize that enough. I really can't. And it's actually one of the things that I sometimes work with clients on is making friends and connections as adults. We sometimes don't do that. We just kind of default to the people around us, and they're not always the people that really fill us up, right? So really being conscious to get out of our little zone of comfort and build a community, ladies. The second thing is about reconnecting with what makes you happy. When you feel lost, you're usually in the kind of ho-hum pattern of your life. And I'm not saying you can just toss all of that out of the window. I mean, I'm constantly doing laundry and cleaning the kitchen because life with 2 children, but that's not all I'm doing. It's not all I'm doing. And I think it's so important. I cannot say this enough, that what makes you happy, that brings you pleasure, and you prioritize that sometimes, right? So, and if that's if you're going, oh my gosh, Sage, I literally don't even know anymore. I'm so never spending time for myself, or I'm so not connected to what lights me up, then that's your assignment after you hear this show, after you've listened. Think about what used to light you up in the past. What used to make you happy? Did you like to sing, dance, run, draw, cook, bake? I have no idea. Knit, craft, collage, go out for coffee, sit at a coffee shop and read the newspaper. I used to love to do that pre-child, just buy a real paper newspaper and people watch in Philadelphia when I was living there. Whatever you kind of used to light you up, explore it. I want you just to consider it a grand experiment. A lot of this finding yourself again is exploring and experimenting with who you now are. Who makes you feel good? What makes you feel good? How can you invite more of that into your life? So literally, it's kind of an experiment. And if you're going, oh my gosh, I don't have the time, I want you to consider, actually, this is part of the things I want to share with you. I want you to consider what you're putting in its place that you're saying what are you making time for? That's what I'm trying to say. What are you making time for? And is what you are making time for connecting you more with your true, deepest sense of self, your naked being, your joy, your curiosity, your creativity, okay? And if it's not, I think that some of those things can go to the back burner so you can do this experiment and explore further what makes you happy, what lights you up. And again, start with what used to make you happy. Go back to being a child if you want. I now ride my bike so much more because I have kids, and riding my bike makes me happy. Being outside, feeling the warm air on my face, moving my body in that way, looking at the trees, it really makes me happy to ride my bike. And it used to make me happy to ride my bike as a kid. Okay. So you're going to take steps, just taking steps in this experiment, reasonable risks, little bits of nakedness, putting yourself out there, okay? Exploring what makes you happy. And then the last thing that I want to share with you today, and it's kind of the crux of it all, is the why. So think about why it's so important to re-find who you are. This is something we just don't give ourselves any white space to consider. We don't just sit and let ourselves consider, like, life is happening every day. Life is happening every day. Somebody wise once said, and I don't remember who, if I do, I will put it in the show notes, but something to the effect of, look, time is going to pass anyway. Time keeps going. So you might as well use it for things that make you happy. It's happening anyway. So why do you care about reconnecting with who you are? I mean, if you look at people who talk about death and dying and the regrets that they have, you'll have some reminders of why it matters to pay attention to this now, right? Like why it matters to consider the relationships that are working or aren't working. Because if you have the opportunity to face your final hours and have some time to reflect, you'll likely be looking around to see, was I loving deeply? Did I deeply love? Am I surrounded by people who care about me, who understand me? Did I make a contribution? Did I use my creativity? Did I raise good human beings? Did I explore my skills and offer my wisdom, right? So what is there to lose is the question of the why. Really, if you just keep going as it is right now, kind of in the status quo, everything's just fine, moving through my days, moving through my weeks, my months, and the years are passing, but you're not really paying attention, right? What do you have to lose? What is the loss there? When you can really get in touch with that, it's so much easier to do the first two things, which is to get outside of your bubble, make new connections, spend time doing things that light you up and leave things that aren't as important behind. Those steps 1 and 2 get easier when you're clear on step 3. And that is the why behind refinding who you are, what lights you up. I cannot tell you the deep sense of satisfaction. I'm like, literally makes me beyond happy when one of my clients or one of my friends is like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what happened. I went dancing for the first time in 10 years, or I had a conversation with my husband that I never thought I could have. And because of that, we're taking a vacation that we've been talking about for a decade, or anything like that. Oh my gosh, the littlest thing. I actually took the afternoon to write. I've been wanting to write forever, whatever it is, okay? When I hear those things, it's like, this one more woman is kind of reborn into the world, and the possibility for what she can create, what she can share, what she can offer, how she can be with other people is reignited because she found who she is, right? I'm actually reading right now this incredible book by Dr. Tararai Trent. I'm going to speak to that on a different show because it's just started reading it, but I saw her speak a couple weeks ago at the Emerging Women Live event. And so it's called The Awakened Woman. And I'm just so psyched by this idea of us showing up in bigger ways. Obviously, that's what all of my work is about, right? This naked piece is about being you, showing up, being courageous, sharing your gifts, making connections that matter. And now I'm seeing that everywhere in this beautiful book that I'm reading by Dr. Trent. And it was part of the talk that I gave at Emerging Women, just about us unleashing ourselves. So I want you to consider these 3 things. 1, get out of your bubble into community that feels good. Spend time with people who see you and are up to what you're up to. 2, think about what lights you up. Think about what made you happy in the past and explore and experiment. Do those things still excite you? See if you can find things that really make you happy. Simple things. You don't have to go do something outrageous, little things in your daily practice and your daily existence, right? And then take steps towards those, even if they're a little risky. And then the last thing is to really consider, what is the reason for living? I guess that sounds heavy, but that's really what this is. What is the reason? What is the why for reconnecting with who you are? And what do you stand to lose if you don't? So that's what I've got for you today, ladies. If you're interested in the group program where we'll be exploring some of these things together in a small community and really getting support on you communicating effectively and showing up powerfully through the holiday season with more grace and ease, please email me, connect with me, sage@sagebhubs.com, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening, as always. And if you love, share with your friends. Thank you so much for listening to Naked Conversations. Yay! It really means the world to me every time you show up. And if you want to know more about how to work with me personally and my coaching, you can check that out over at sagebhabs.com. You can also get some great free resources over there about how to make powerful requests and many blog posts full of resources for living a naked life, as well as grab a copy of my book, Naked Communication, Courageously Create the Relationships You Really Want. And lastly, keep the conversation going with us over in the Facebook community, sagebhabs.com/Facebook, where we can keep talking about these super important and powerful topics of living a life fully expressed. Thanks again. See you next time.